Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back once again to Gran Turismo 7. It is that time of the week once again in which the weekly challenges or weekly races, whatever you want to call them, get reset on a Thursday, obviously giving us a chance to get ourselves hands on some new rewards. Now, whilst the end of 2023 and the start of 2024 were very rewarding in terms of the prizes we were given and the opportunity to sort of earn money, it seemed to come very naturally with those. I'd say this week is perhaps a very weak week. So in terms of the events that we've got, they are relatively good. However, the actual prizes and payouts aren't that great. So don't expect too much from week 2 of January 2024. So in terms of the events we've got Suzuka Circuit East Course for the Japanese FF Challenge 450. Obviously for front wheel drive cars, around about 450 pp. Must be from Japan. Then we move over to the American Sunday Cup 600 at Blue Moon Speedway Infield A. Again 600 pp, aiming at those kind of cars, American cars. And then we have a new special event. Once again, the Radical SR3 makes its return for a one-make race. I do wish Polyphony would keep these in because I think they are very much reminiscent of what we saw in the sort of early Gran Turismo games. So the likes of Gran Turismo 2, where we had this sort of, manufacturers races that were sort of built into those games. So hopefully one day we can see these actually make their own menu books up, as I think they'll be very interesting, likes of the Porsches, the Civics, and obviously the Radicals as well. Then we move on to the Schwarzwald League over at the Nordschleife for a one-lap sprint. Again, varying conditions, a bit of a pain that race. Really not a fan of that one. And then we have the WTC 900 at Trial Mountain. Rewards for this week: 100k, 200k, and a 5-star roulette ticket reward. So nothing really, too standoutish in terms of the reward for week 2. So let's have a look and an overview at event number 1. Like mentioned, this is for front wheel drive Japanese cars aimed at 450 performance points. So a very limited roster, I'd say, in terms of overall vehicles that we can use. You're going to see a lot of Hondas and a few Suzukis mixed in. Now I went for the Civic Type R, obviously with the HRC livery on it that we obviously got for taking part in the time trials. I not really put any miles on this car, so I thought, do you know what, I'll just go ahead and use it, and obviously I absolutely stomped the AI. Now, as usual for these events, I will aim to use cars that I've either not used that much or maybe not used it in a while, obviously on the hardest difficulty, so you can see really what you're up against if you want to kind of challenge yourself a little bit, and then those kind of things. So in terms of event number 1, you don't really need any guidance on this one, obviously because it's so short and on such a short layout. The only real thing you need to worry about is perhaps the 2 cars up front. If you do go for something relatively underpowered, unlike me here with this Type R, you will perhaps have to do a bit of catching up, as the Integra and the Civic just seem to absolutely pull away from the rest. But we did get this one done nice and easy. First place, stamp number 1, and that is obviously going to give us our 100k reward ticket. In terms of payout with a clean race bonus, 10.5k just for completing this event. Obviously the 100k then bundled on top, so quite nice for a 3-lap sprint. It's going to be over 100,000 credits just for that one event. So let's move in to event number 2. So the main start of the show for this one is obviously going to be American cars. Obviously it's a Sunday Cup, so very relaxed in terms of the rules, I guess. There is no performance point cap, although it does mention the 600. Just like with the 450, there's no cap on exactly what you have to use or a performance point range. So I went for just over 600 pp with the Ford GT from 2017, a car that I'd never driven. It's just kind of sat around in my garage for the longest time, so I decided to just kind of get it out and get a few laps in. Obviously a ton of power and a lot of acceleration from this car, surprisingly so. It's a lot more aggressive than a lot of the other cars in GT7 in terms of when you put your foot down, those sports hards are going to start spinning up, and then you're kind of at the mercy of the vehicle itself. Now obviously I'm trying to go for the clean race bonus as much as possible, so I'm just trying to take my time working my way through the grid. Now one thing I did notice, although this is kind of cars aimed at 600 pp. Most of the cars were relatively underpowered, apart from a few Camaros that were up front, especially this yellow one that did seem to have a much higher top speed than almost anything else on the grid, obviously apart from ourselves. We did eventually though get that move done at the start of lap 2, and then it was pretty much plain sailing from there as the sun set at the speedway. So there we go, job done, nice and easy. That is going to be stamp number 2 for the week for events completed. Obviously no reward to go alongside the second stamp. There will be for the third though. In terms of the payout, again, not great, 22.5k, but as you know, always really with these first 2 events, they are relatively minor in terms of their overall reward, but it's not going to really get too much better for the rest of the week. So there we go, 22.5k in the bank. Event number 3 is going to be a new special event. It does seem that whilst at first these weren't necessarily a regular thing, they are very much cemented as being pretty much a weekly thing, limited time online event. Now I do wish, like I mentioned, that these have been made into sort of a menu book reminiscent of the sort of Gran Turismo 2 manufacturer events. I think they work very well, and we've had enough of them now that they definitely make a great little championship series to run, both the Porsches, Radicals, and obviously the Hondas. Now this time up we do have the Radical, obviously a one make race. I would say in terms of difficulty, this is certainly going to be the hardest race of the week. You are going to get a relatively decent payout though for the 5-lap sprint that we're having here. So in terms of the standard Radical, I believe it runs on sports hards. I would not recommend those. They're just not quick enough, to be totally honest. And in terms of the sort of, I guess, cap in terms of the performance, I like to keep my car as standard as possible to give myself as many, I guess, chances for a close race. I did end up doing this twice over, once because I realized I wasn't recording, and then the second time I absolutely butchered my run and completely wiped out my clean race bonus. So it really wasn't a successful day. Third time's a charm though, and we did eventually get going. So I put the softs on. However, I did notice in terms of the outright top speed of the Radicals, the AI were much quicker than me in a straight line on the hardest difficulty, so they were constantly pulling even though I was in the slipstream. And I guess that's the best bit of advice I can give you. If you do really want to challenge yourself, you are going to need to make plenty of use of the slipstream to be able to get those overtakes done. Fantastic close race as always. Really enjoyed these one make races. Again, please, Polyphony, if you do end up listening to this, get these made into a menu book or a little kind of championship so we can constantly run these. These are very enjoyable races, some of the best and closest races in the game. So it's going to be 200k on top of the 112k payout for this event. So, you know, over 300k for that third event, not too bad at all. But then we do have this event right here, which I am just not a fan of. This is the Schwarzwald League. As you can see, it's going to take part at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. However, it's a massive pain in the arse, to be totally honest. I just don't like this event at all because it is so randomized. Now, the first time I ran this, I thought I might be able to get away with just using a, you know, I guess underpowered version of the Mercedes-Benz on racing hards and perhaps get away with it in terms of sort of the dry conditions. I didn't, and I ended up absolutely wiping myself out, so I restarted and went on to the intermediates, and as you can see from the weather radar, this time around I had zero rain. Even after checking the sort of weather radar over the previous hour, it looked like rain was definitely going to be a thing. Loaded the race up and no race to be seen. Rain to be seen, should I say. So definitely was a bit janky in terms of running the intermediates for the entire time around the Nordschleife whilst in a maximum output performance, you know, Mercedes-Benz VGT, the race version or whatever we want to call it. So yeah, definitely a bit of a weird event, and to be totally honest, I've just never really been a fan of this one overall. I think in terms of GT7 and the events I outright don't like, this one will perhaps be at the top of the list. Again, it's all good having that hour-long weather radar, but it isn't always absolutely perfect, and then when you jump in a race and it's completely one thing to the next, it's just an absolute nightmare. Don't get me wrong, the previous hour weather radar did improve this event, but not by much, and I would also love a much longer event for road going vehicles at the Nordschleife. So, you know, again, I just wish it was just that bit longer with the varying conditions at play. I think it would have been absolutely much better in my opinion, if it kind of worked that way, where it sort of eased itself in and then dried up and it wasn't, you know, absolutely randomized. Whilst I do love the randomized weather, it just doesn't really work over a 1 lap sprint when it can be so hit or miss. Now, I don't think I took the clean race bonus on this one, so it was 96,000 credit. In fact, yes, I did. I didn't think I did. I thought a bit of contact earlier on in the lap would have absolutely killed that, but 96k for that 1 lap sprint, again, not too great. Now, finally, we do have the WTC 900, which is obviously one of the, I guess, newer series of events to GT7 after Spec 2. Now, I would definitely say this is one of the easier, I guess, little quotation marks, longer races in the game. Obviously, a trial mountain, so we're not going to have to worry about weather. And this is kind of going to bring out my criticism with the 900 races. The AI it gives you just aren't very scaled to 900 pp, even on the highest difficulty. So the SRT Tomahawk, it's a Group 1 car that I've never really used. I do have one with a few more miles on, but this one was just kind of sat there with nothing on it. So I thought, do you know what? Let's go ahead and take this out. It's been a long time since I've driven one of these. And yeah, I quite quickly realized that whilst the limit is capped at 900, the AI must be running way under that. The majority of them are a mix between Group 3 and Group 2, meaning that although the majority of Group 1 cars are much better scaled towards the 900 pp limit, you will absolutely walk this if you end up anywhere near that 900 limit. I think I was sat at about 890 to 895 depending on the compound I was using. So again, you're probably not going to need a heads up. Just do a pit stop. Honestly, I just went for the absolute sprint way. So mediums, fuel mix 1, a little bit of saving for a lap just to ensure that I can drag it out a bit longer on the mediums. They will be completely shredded. Box in, I just went for some softs just to kind of get those used up and go even quicker. And then, to be honest, you can just absolutely fly to the finish. No need to mess around with fuel. Again, I just kind of wanted the more sprint vibe from what is a relatively short 10-lap sprint. Again, not having to put up with weather or anything like that. So overall, a relatively easy event. I don't think many people will struggle with this one in comparison to some of the variable conditions races, which in my opinion are much more enjoyable. Again, I just feel like this race, if it was more competitive with Group 1 machinery involved and was longer, it would be absolutely spot on. So in terms of the race overall, 160k for this one. I didn't get the clean race bonus, so expect 240 if you do get the 50% on top. In terms of the overall reward, this is going to give us our final tick and the 5-star roulette ticket reward for this week. So let's put the prizes on: 100k, 200k, and then obviously we'll open up the randomized 5-star roulette ticket reward, which is always predetermined before you even open it. So if you do end up cancelling out, you are not going to get a different reward. Now, I thought I'd end up with the lowest, however I did end up with a relatively decent 1 million credit car, which is one of the Peugeot VGT, so the L500R hybrid VGT from 2017. Again, average reward, not really a useful car, but I'm not really going to turn down a free car overall. In terms of this week, it was definitely the weakest week that we've had in, you know, a good few weeks. We did end up with a bit of a weak run up to the end of the year, but then we had a banger at the end of the year, a fairly reasonable first week, and then it's kind of just dropped off once again. Now, with an update probably coming towards the end of January, hopefully this does improve and we get some new events to run in these, I guess, weekly challenges. Thanks so much for joining. I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.